Do you want to go to a place? I want to go to a place. Do you want to go to a place? I wanna go to a place. I can take you there. I can take you there. Do you wanna go to a place? I can take you there. Say do you want to go to a place? Search far and wide by your side.
Hello and welcome to Mosaic with TJ Randolph. I am TJ Randolph. Please put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me, because you all know I have a tendency to start talking before I unmute myself. So shout out to RM in the house. Thank you for joining me, darling. Thank you. Shout out to Lady Iris, thank you for coming through. Okay, everybody can hear me. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have to go through the announcements. I always want to give a shout out to my firstborn nephew, Spunk Adams, for that song, Noun. That's on the intro. Also, shout out to my niecey Pooh, Lucky Marie, who put together my new intro that I absolutely love. Oh my gosh, I forgot my ring. Anyway, I might have to go get that. So shout out to my hardworking trucker man and all the truckers traveling these highways and byways, bringing us our much needed goods to keep that supply chain going. Okay. Shout out to Courtney Michelle. Shout out to Courtney Michelle. I just texted her and told her, I said, listen, you've been growing us real for the past 2 days. It's like class has been in session. Class has been in session 2 days in a row. Yesterday with the gentleman that I'm just going to call him the professor because I can't pronounce his name, but I'm going to call him the professor. And today with the GOAT herself, Ms. Scheherazade Ali, growing us real. Again, okay, I do have on fake hair today, but I'm among those women that she talked about back in the day whose hair was thinning and so forth and so on. I done told y'all my story, so don't come for me. But I understand exactly what she was talking about. And again, putting the fake hair in the baby's head, we're not doing none of that. I didn't do that with my daughter, and we're not doing it with my G baby at all. Okay. I have 2 special guests. One is already here, and I'm hoping the other one will be here momentarily. He said he was on his way home, so I'm hoping they will be here momentarily. But I'm going to go ahead and bring my first guest up. You all know him as the balanced, very learned scholar in his own right, who also grows us real, who's about keeping the community together, who's not ashamed to point out the flaws on both sides of the coin, if you will. And he has started something that says Kevin Samuel started this conversation. Let's bring him to the panel. Shout out to We Need to Talk.
Hey TJ, how you doing?
I have my applause button. Could y'all hear? You hear what
I did. I appreciate it.
I want to start off with a little levity because I have seen your reaction to the Woman King, and I'm
Hmm.
go get your brother, please. If you don't have to, go get your brother. Go get your brother. Where your brother at? Behind the preposition. Go get your brother. Okay, so I want to start with a little levity. So I'm going to share my screen,
Okay.
and I don't know if you've seen this, but I find it quite. Oh, please like as you come into the studio if you would. Okay. Share screen. I don't know if you've seen this. Have you have you seen this, Alan?
I have not. No, no. What is it?
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna start with a little levy, so let's go.
Okay. There's no audio.
Oh, what?
Yeah, there's no
Okay, no
audio.
audio?
Yeah, you have to share it as a tab instead of a screen. It's weird.
Okay. Thank you for the schooling. I appreciate it. So,
You're
so
welcome.
share it as a tab.
Yeah.
Share. Okay. Share. Okay,
And then you'll see,
a
yeah, you'll
Chrome
see it
tab.
says Chrome. There we go. And then at the bottom, it should have a checkbox for share audio.
Okay. Oh, it does. Okay. Hmm. Okay, let's try it again. I appreciate the schooling.
I got you.
Okay, let's go. Okay, see if I can get it, bring it back up. Where'd it go? Okay, don't talk about me. I'm struggle streaming. I need y'all to leave me alone.
It's all good.
Okay, here we go. Let's go.
Friend, I just saw the Woman King. Yeah. Cool. That's how I feel. Well, now I feel, that's how I feel. I don't even know what I just said. Shot. Yeah. That's how I feel. Wonderful movie. Wonderful movie. There's so many things to unpack. I might have to watch it again. When y'all see me in 20 minutes with the biceps all oiled up, just know I'm feeling myself. The Woman King. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. I'm not meaning to even. Ah! Friend, I just saw the Woman King.
Okay, let me get my dog. I'm sorry. Just a minute. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
It's like a child only wants attention when you're doing something.
Right.
Sorry about that, friends.
So
Sorry about that, friends. Okay, so before we get into it,
hmm
I saw your review, and you
Okay.
said that initially you weren't going to go see it.
hmm
And may I ask, why weren't you going to see it?
I think it's because I felt like I knew what to expect. Um, and then, with me knowing what to expect, I didn't think it would be it would add anything to me. And then plus, I mean, side note, I'm more so like a sci-fi fan than an action fan. So I don't know. It did just when I saw it, it didn't do anything for me.
Did the boycott of the trailer, or even
hmm
or even before the trailer came out, with
hmm
the murmurings that were going on, did that influence your thinking of whether or not you were going to even consider it?
Not really, honestly, not really. Because again, when I saw the trailer, I was like, okay, it's another female empowerment movie. But it wasn't like the boycotting made me think that. I already thought that. When I saw it, I felt the same leaving the theater, but I had a couple of more feelings that I'm sure we'll talk about after seeing the movie.
Okay, okay. So with that, again, Courtney, again, shout out to Courtney Michelle. She did a a video yesterday focusing on
Mhm.
the Dahomey tribe, and she had a gentleman there who, like I said, I'll call him the professor. I'm not sure if you
Mhm.
saw the video, but it was a conversation that really opened my eyes, and I think a lot of other people. Did you have an opportunity to see that?
Yeah, I caught a few minutes of it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I have some clips here and there that I want to talk about, but before I do that, I want to I want to show some clips of the movie that was very popular, of course.
Okay.
So let me try to share again. So you said I just share a Chrome
Chrome
tab.
tab, and then make sure it's clicked. Yeah.
Okay. Chrome tab. Is that the one? Window. Okay. Can you see this?
I can. Yeah.
I'm,
This.
can you hear it?
Do it one more time.
She is a legend.
Yeah.
It's the gladiator of our time.
It is not enough to be the best.
It's absolute blast, uplifting, action epic.
You are beautiful as you are fierce.
The Woman King, rated PG-13, now playing in theaters.
Okay. So just on that clip,
Hmm.
okay. You are beautiful as you are. What he said, you're beautiful as you
Fierce.
are fierce.
Fierce. Yeah.
First thoughts on that one.
I'll say this: when Panther came out,
Mhm.
and we were told that the Dora Milaje, the King's Guard, was going to be based on the Dahomey Amazons. I My immediate thought was, why are they trying to play up this idea that women are better suited for combat? I'm Nigerian, so
Mhm.
as a Nigerian, as an African, the reality is, although we had some female warriors, they weren't the SEAL Team 6 that Hollywood would like us to believe, right? And I think in the climate of women abandoning their femininity, abandoning their real strength to assume
Mhm.
a more overt masculine strength, I think it only serves that purpose. So for me, I think it does a lot more harm than good,
Mhm.
telling little girls that they are stronger, more capable than their male counterparts, especially black little girls. And then telling black little boys that not only are your women intellectually superior than you to you, they're also physically superior to you. So when you have boys who are growing up in single mother households where all they see is women, I think what we end up seeing is men who also abandon their strengths and their masculinity and their masculine disposition. So I think these movies just make that worse.
Okay, so I won't necessarily disagree with that.
Hmm.
I think the question that I would have though, should there be no movies should there be any movies that have women in showing any type of strength other than
Hmm.
the soft and demure strength?
Yes, but it shouldn't be the overwhelming majority, right? And it shouldn't exist in a landscape devoid of black men being able to show overt strength, right? Like when we see even with the Oscars, when we see people win Oscars, the black men are only winning Oscars for playing roles that perpetuate the dysfunction that they use to brand us. And
Mhm.
black women are typically playing roles of people who are taken advantage of, or people who have to assume a masculine disposition. And I think that's partly why we romanticize masculine women and feminine men. So I don't think it's like there should be none of it. I just think there should be balance. Like I always kind of say, it should be a lot more balance.
Okay. And I told you when we were backstage that
Hmm.
I see some of the things that people are talking about and I don't necessarily disagree with them. I
Hmm.
think I look at it differently also because I am former military,
Mm-hmm.
you know, former Army and former Navy. In as much as I was not on the front line, I did not go forward. When it came down to training, if you will, specifically basic training, at the time that I went through the military, the women were trained in different companies from men. But when it came time, we still had to qualify with our weapons.
Mm-hmm.
We still had to qualify, you know, with grenades, all those things we had to qualify. Now, mind you, there were different standards for physical fitness standards
There we go.
for women and men. That definitely was that. But as it related to the weaponry, those things, we had to do the same thing because at the end of the day, we were still soldiers. Now, I will submit to you that in as much, I've never been a woman who wanted to go combat arms. That wasn't
Right.
me.
Most women don't.
That wasn't me.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to serve and I wanted to lead, and I wanted to serve and I wanted to lead, but I didn't have the idea that I wanted to do the same thing as my counterparts. My male counterparts. As a matter of fact, I won't forget when I was in ROTC, I wanted to pursue a commission in human resources, basically a personnel officer. And the closest thing to combat arms at the time for women were field artillery and I think military police and certain things like that. So they were trying to push me to do those other things. I said, I don't want to do that. I said, I'm gonna get paid the same amount of money to be in the rear with the gear. But because I want, like I said, I wanted to serve, but I did not want to serve and do the same things as my male counterparts. But I still had to train the same way as my male counterparts. What are your thoughts?
And I think you mentioned something very, very important. My sister's in the Air Force.
Okay.
And, you know, she also talks about the difference in physical fitness requirements for men and women. And I think it really just speaks to our physical differences, you know, the bone density, the muscle mass, to even cardiovascular endurance, right? Like men and women, males and females are built for different things. And I think from a Black Afrocentric perspective, I think the reason why we're trying to, or the powers that be are trying to kind of neutralize our sexuality as Black people is because they realize, you know, if women are playing in the masculine arena, the opportunity cost is their feminine strength. And if the men are playing in the feminine arena, the opportunity cost is the masculine strength. So we won't have male soldiers. We won't have female mothers. And I think we're seeing that play out. So for me, it's less about like, I don't like how it looks. And it's more about like, what are the consequences of this? And our girls aspiring to be Navy SEALs and our boys aspiring to be chefs. It doesn't bode well as we move into the future, especially as an oppressed people.
Oh, by the way, I'm drinking a blueberry margarita tonight. I'll put the ingredients in the description. Please drink responsibly.
I gotta check that out.
Okay.
I have nothing in my fridge, so I would join you, but you know, my fridge is looking kind of empty.
Okay. So I want to go to a clip, the Courtney Michelle interview. I want to go to a certain part of the clip. Let me bring that up. 1420. And it goes to what a lot of people were talking about, that it wasn't historically factual. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed the professor yesterday, because he broke it. Yeah. I mean, I literally felt like I was in class. I mean, I truly did. So let me go ahead and share this one.
Basic groundwork of connecting things. John Henry Clark, Joseph Ben-Yochanan, George Padmore. I mean, several historians over the last 100 years. but they mostly came from the diaspora. Why? Because the educational system that exists in the diaspora allows for research. In Africa, the legacy of colonialism to an extent is copy the British, what the British do, but not exactly. Okay, you see, you have to even understand in Nigeria, for instance, where I'm from, at independence in 1960, the initial part of independence, we left the judiciary, the army, and the educational system still in the control of the British. So it's only been 60 years, which is not long anyway. But even after those, even as we started, we basically said, we're going to keep letting you educate us. There's schools in Ghana you can go to now where they're still talking about advantages and disadvantages of slavery in geography lessons. These are things that still go on because we, for the most part, don't understand our history. And that's why I always find it very frustrating when I have people either from the Caribbean, America, South America, come to Africa and go and ask somebody on the street for information about history and they just go with what they say.
They don't know.
And that's why a lot of there's almost a romanticized approach or feeling of this romantic feeling that we have towards Africans. Africans are backward. I mean, no disrespect. Black people around the world, we are very, very backward in general. Simply because we have been sold a bill of goods, which has allowed us to think that there's some sort of distance between us. Whereas, if you watch my documentary about the rise of Islam in Mali, I talk about the current that takes you from the west coast of Africa.
So he's talking about how we basically separate ourselves. And it's no different. We did that then in Dahomey, well, in Africa, but we're also doing it now. But I also want to get to what he said about, he said here that he who writes history basically determines what people learn. Basically, that was the gist of it. And I had to agree with that because, again, before this movie, I had never heard of the Dahomey. But I did know that Africans participated in the slave trade. That was not anything new to me. But when he says that Africans are backwards as it relates to history or education, and he said all of us, what are your thoughts on that?
So I was working on a documentary a couple years ago called Brain Drain. And basically the premise of the documentary was, why is it that so many Nigerians in particular achieve such greatness overseas, but we don't have greatness being developed on the continent, in the country? And, is there some responsibility of the Nigerians like myself who left to come back and help in the renaissance of what the country could potentially be? And one of the professors that I interviewed, she talked about pretty much what he alluded to as far as STEM being prioritized and the arts being deprioritized. So you don't have people who are interested in philosophy or music or anthropology or, history. So outside of, one-offs, most people are trying to be doctors and engineers. And that's because those professions serve the British colonial powers more so than professions that prioritize, us leading our own narrative. So that part is true. And that's kind of part of where I want to stand. That's part of the void that I want to fill, is having Black stories, African stories told by Black people, told by Africans. And I think that's kind of what leads to some of the misconceptions and things like that. So for instance, even with the Black people sold Black people into slavery, even though that's true, it's incomplete, right? Because what we fail to realize is that Black as an identity didn't exist before colonialism. It didn't exist before the transatlantic slave trade, because in Africa, we are so diverse that we had already sectioned ourselves off. So it's not that I'm black and you're black. No, it's I'm Igbo, you're Yoruba, you're Hausa. You know, so we didn't view ourselves as one people, and we
Right.
weren't selling our people. We were selling people that we viewed as others. Now,
Yes.
in retrospect, we view that as black people selling black people, but it's very incomplete. And even with the, you know, with the movie, the Dahomey and the Oyo Empire, they were warring, competing people. So if a Dahomey person sold an Oyo person, they looked at it as I'm selling a captive, right? I'm selling the other. I'm a Crip, I'm selling the blood.
Right.
And I'm selling not just am I selling a blood, I'm selling a blood that's been oppressing me for so long, right? And then on top of that, I think we fail to understand that their understanding of slavery is different than what chattel slavery was. Their understanding would more so fit indentured servitude, right?
Yes.
Because that existed there, that had been existing,
Yes.
you know, prisoners of war and the whole nine, whereas chattel slavery here was meant to literally break you. So it's a little different. So the reason why I'm such a big,
and you were born into it. You never
Absolutely.
got free from it. Your legacy, or your children and children's children were born into it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, my last point is the reason I'm so like I'm so fixated on us telling our stories instead of CNN or Al Jazeera or BBC is because those nuances are what separate, you know, what's true from truth. Because I think there's a difference. Because black people sold black people, that's true, but it's not truth. You know, so I think it's super important.
So what do you say to the people, because there are many of us Black people who have saying, how dare they do a movie glamorizing these slave traders and are glorifying slave traders, and that's a blemish, and why would they want to broadcast that? What do you say to that? Because I don't think it's glamorizing it to show that it happened.
Right. I think it's you know, from that perspective, I want to see more of it because I want people to understand the complexity of the institution. And I've mentioned this before, but the complexity of I might sell you today, but your cousin might sell me tomorrow. Right. So in as much as, because the narrative is that as a Nigerian, I'm a descendant of people who sold people into slavery, not knowing that some African Americans are also descendants of people who sold people into slavery. Now they got the negative end of the deal later on in life. Or when we look at Liberians now, some Liberians are literally transatlantic returnees. You know, so it's a lot more complicated. It's a lot more nuanced, and that's why I think, you know, more movies, more documentaries about the nuances of the slave trade, I think is going to be super important.
Okay, so there is something else I'm going to fast forward because there were so many great, and I'm going to put Courtney's, if you all don't know, please go check out her interview yesterday with the professor, because it was amazing. And I want to go to the part that you talk about, that he's talking about in a minute, about the difference between what we know slavery to be and indentured servitude. But before I do that, he's talking about here the woman's guard. Let's go to 47.
Bro. So they were giving them these weapons that are making them start defending themselves, and quite naturally also get involved in the trade. Because how do you pay for these weapons? It's by trade. So absolutely, I don't make any excuses. They were absolutely involved in enslaving Africans. That's absolutely true. But in their mind, it's not enslaving Africans, it's enslaving this other group. You see, it's a handful of Europeans that come in on the coastline. It's not as if they're seeing they have Instagram to see, you know, all the Europeans. You know, they see a handful that come and do trade, offer them trinkets. So they're not seeing each other. When you have a continent of just black people, many of these people only saw white people when they saw them on the coast, right? So even the idea that somehow these people were looking at some sort of Pan-African lens and saw everybody as, oh, this is my brother, we're all in the same oppression. No. Look at the movie. Right. John Boyega's character, King Gizzle, was sat on the throne. It's not like he was suffering. Yes, he was under pressure. He's not suffering. All he knows is these people are trying to take my head. take my kingdom and maybe sell me into slavery. You know?
Okay, and see, and also in the movie, okay, by the way, there are going to be some spoilers. So if you haven't seen anything about seeing it, I'm just letting you know. But I don't think that they gloss over it, because even in that movie, he talks about how his brother sold their mother into slavery.
Right.
But like the professor just said, and like you just said, it's not like they looked at, I'm selling my brother African into slavery. I'm selling this other person, like he said, who's trying to take my head.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like what we think of it to be.
Right.
And I think our ignorance, and I say our, because I throw myself into it anyway, that we, again, with that, we allow others to tell the narrative and we become ashamed of ourselves.
Right.
But without having the full context or understanding of what was happening at the time.
Yeah. And it's a brilliant way for the white power structure to kind of like disassociate themselves from responsibility. So it's almost like, oh, your brother gave you to me, as opposed to the nuances and the complication of sometimes it was espionage, sometimes it was, pitting two rivals against one another, and either you sell them or I'm a come take you. Like there was a lot more going on behind the scenes, and then when you consider even the Berlin Conference, like there were, concerted efforts made by the white power structure to keep and exploit Africa's division. So they wouldn't keep fighting amongst themselves, and they could better exploit the Congo and the West and the East and the North. I mean, the South and the North. But again, if you miss that nuance, it's as simple as I sold my brother or I sold my sister, when that's not what it was.
And it's interesting. Shout out to my mom, and also shout out to Fayetteville State, because my mother just graduated with her bachelor's at Fayetteville State last May at the age of 72. At the age of 72. So when we went to see the movie, and I was telling her about some of the outrage with respect to, the idea that people were upset about selling other Africans into slavery, my mother said the same thing that you said. She said, well, first of all, that was part of the spoils of war.
Mm-hmm.
The spoils of war. And I would contend some of that would still be going on if we didn't have the Geneva Convention. I'm just saying, in my opinion. I'm just saying. So let's continue here real quick, because I have some other clips.
So you have to look at it from that point of view. Otherwise it becomes too easy to just blame. Again, all of us in our DNA will have enemies at some stage.
It's audio, it's not video.
You have part Yoruba.
Right.
Okay. Hold on a minute. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
I think the beverage is starting to get to me.
Part Fon. You have part Mosi and part Ishakiri. Either way, one way or another, they're fighting each other. And these are the very many groups that exist. But anyway, so to finally answer your question, the Dahomey Kingdom ends up fighting to defend themselves against the Oyo and get involved in the same trade. So this is where they come about. The Woman King talks about the Amazons, the Mino. Mino is the document. There's a book called by a man called Richard Burton. He went to Dahomey in the 1850s, and in his diary, he calls them the Mino. Many people call them the Mino. The Agoji is another name, but many people, the word in the old world was Mino, M-I-N-O. Okay, I'm sure Agoji is also used too in foreign language today. But the Mino was started by, I think it was it was started by the wife of the second generation of kings, which I also explained in the documentary as well. She's the one who founded this regiment. Now, also, just so you understand, this concept of having a woman personal guard is consistent with the Oyo also had it. The Egba also had it. Egba is the Yoruba group that's next to Oyo in what is now called...
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. Again, it's my understanding, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. It is my understanding, and what the professor said, the guard was basically born out of necessity.
Mm-hmm. They were losing too many men.
Say again?
They were losing too many men. And I think it's a perfect I think it's such a perfect metaphor for what we see happening right now in the West, right? Like we're seeing women have to assume this masculine disposition, this warrior disposition, because we're losing too many men. Mass incarceration, drugs, homosexuality. The list goes on and on. So I think it's such a perfect metaphor. But again, I think movies like this try to paint this picture that it's not that these women were born of necessity. It's that these women were the elite. They were the best of the best. And that's simply not true. These women were akin to like child soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality. Like child soldiers can kill just like men. It's just pulling a trigger. But are they, Shaka Zulu? No. But it serves a certain purpose to keep telling women that you're better suited in this particular role. When the truth of it is, we had you on the front line because we ran out of dudes. We ran out of men.
And I will submit to you, I'm going to take it a step further, and I don't give a damn who disagrees. Okay, the draft ended in 1973.
Mm-hmm.
In 2003, as a captain, I was a captain in the Army, I put together a program to commemorate, I think, 30 years of voluntary service with the end of the draft. I will submit to you because I worked with recruiters for over 3 years. If many women weren't going into the military voluntarily, there would be more men drafted into the military because they're not going in like that. And that's the fact. Whether it would be whether it be support roles, if women were not voluntarily going into these roles, the draft would probably be reinstituted. What say you?
I think it's interesting because even our definition of like a warrior is different these days. Because, for instance, my sister, she went to the military so they could pay for her school. Like that's the reality. It's not the traditional I want to fight for my country. It's not that, especially for Black people. It's usually not that. I think that's interesting. That women are volunteering. Now, are you saying they're volunteering in large numbers, or are you saying they're volunteering just enough to not have to go back to the draft?
Well, it's just enough because, again, I'm going to tell you, just especially, in the latter years, again, right after 9/11, because, again, I was on active duty in 9/11, swearing in men and women, and the number of volunteers surged. However, in the latter years, those volunteers have gone down. And I had seen, it was a joke about what recruiters would do toward the end of the month to meet their numbers. So again, you had to get numbers. So if it became a situation that enough people were not volunteering to go into the military, men and women, but women were included in that number, to not sustain our forces, I will submit that the draft would be reinstituted. And again, I understand completely because I'm not saying that I joined the military initially just because I had this sense of patriotism. I didn't. When I joined the reserves in 1986, some of y'all wasn't even thought about then. I did it because I was getting money for college and loan repayment. I wasn't thinking about the idea of going to war was not even something that I even fathomed. And then when I went on active duty, it wasn't something I even fathomed. It was a way for me to take care of me and my daughter. However, in that period of time, it was a sense of patriotism. It was a sense of culture that I had volunteered for, regardless of my motives. I volunteered, and if there weren't volunteers such as myself, men and women, the draft would be, in my opinion, be reinstituted, because we already know that it was on the table for the selective service, the registry for selective service, to include women. That just happened last year, and it was almost going to go into effect. So I will contend again, in as much as women are not on the front lines, because of their voluntary service, a lot of men don't have to go in or have not gone in, or the draft may not have been reinstituted for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that I think that makes sense. I do, however, like, I'm curious, do you think if there was a draft that women would be enthusiastic about it in large numbers?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, I have never been a woman to say I want to do no. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want. But I've never do. Now, will I go if I have to? Yes. Like the Agoge, out of necessity. But again, I think one of the things that really frustrated me with the fact is that since when do we look to Hollywood to tell us our story? And for people to be outraged about that, I'm like, it's Hollywood.
Right. And that was part of my take too. Like, when I watched O'Shea's video, he talked about how, we can't continue to complain without supporting what we want to see more of, right? So instead of complaining when Hollywood does what Hollywood does, we should support creators that we want to tell our story. We should support whether the story is stories where Black men are positioned with power and valor and the whole nine, or stories where Black women get to be soft and demure and taken care of, or just stories that are historically accurate. Instead of spending our time and energy boycotting or complaining about what white folk have going on, if we supported what Black folk have going on, we would see better results. And I think, for me, that's the biggest takeaway from the movie, because it makes sense for white people to make these type of films. It makes sense for Hollywood to make these type of films, because when you look at it from a business perspective, the largest consumer base is women, and you can make the argument, particularly Black women. So women and Black women are going to want to see themselves in a certain fantastical light, and that's why you get movies like The Woman King. That's why you get the Dora Milaje in Black Panther, and it's going to keep going that way, because that's what lines capitalism's pockets until we decide that we want to see a different narrative. So it's on us. It's on us.
Okay, so I'm going to skip here because there are a lot of notes and I can't get to all of them, obviously, because I want to save your time. But I want to talk about. I'm going to skip ahead. 2:1:14. And here Courtney's talking to the professor about the influence of the Dahomey and how they fought on how they influenced Haiti. So I want to talk about that for a sec.
Even taking Dahomey tribe or any kind of Africans and bringing them over, we're not knowing that we're still, or what was happening then, it still affect us. So I was surprised to learn that the influence the Dahomey tribe had in Haiti.
Again. Let me just qualify that a little bit. You see, because again, of course, Haiti is probably the most prominent place in the Western Hemisphere for Black people. It should be a pilgrimage site, by the way. By the way, before we go to, I think you said you're a Christian.
Okay, let me skip ahead. Let me skip ahead to this one.
Sure.
Let me go to this one. Skip ahead to this 127. Okay.
It's producing what the world needs to see of us, and the strength and different cultures of us, but still how it also relates to us. Because regardless of where you're from, you still have some in me that's still part of your DNA, and that needs to be represented. And we can't rely on everybody else or the people that's doing it on the coast to represent what the majority of us are doing. And you're absolutely right, man. I've been saying this And I'm just so happy you're here.
Okay, wait a minute. I got
Well,
I got a little bit ahead. Let me go back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's start here.
And I want to be very specific because I'm not insulting any particular industry, but I'll say this about music industry. See, the music industry, Black music in general, and it's not just in America. We have Afrobeat, which in another 5 years will probably be bigger than hip hop or R&B. Another 5 years, it's just so big simply because the numbers are bigger, the audience is bigger worldwide. It's going to be huge. It's pretty big now. We have this tendency to we have this tendency to want to show ourselves and our freedom in a way that isn't complementary to the rest of us, right? If you look at Afrobeat music, for instance, it takes essentially African traditional music and puts on hip hop lyrics. When I say hip hop lyrics, it's not an insult to hip hop music, but it's music. It's not promoting our culture in the same way. It's rather trying to take us away from our culture, trying to make it more of a universal sound, which is fine. If you look at the elements that made hip hop in the initial stage, it was essentially an African flow, an African rhythm. What it's become is something else. Now, the imagery that comes with that is even worse. And I don't want to go into detail. The imagery that comes with it is even worse. And this is why I said something in a video the other day, which is, I remember how I said we had WIDA, the people on WIDA, the people on the periphery of society. We still have the people on the periphery of the society dictating to the world what the inland is supposed to be doing. In other words, people of WIDA, when you arrive at the coast, and they are the last people you see as you go on the slave ship, and you're the first person, and they're the first people the Europeans see. To many people, because remember, the Europeans are not venturing inland that much. They're on the coast, on the beach. These people are what their representation of Africa is, for the most part. In the same way that today, when we go and look at, we don't have MTV anymore, but we go and see our music videos or whatever, the people that we are seeing that represent the culture are the Widans, the people of WIDA.
Wow.
So how you see this thing as it's just one thing going on in America, one thing going on in Africa, it's one universal problem. You have WIDA. WIDA is dictating to the world what the people in the inland are supposed to be dictating. And remember, WIDA, just like the music industry today, it's a bunch of Europeans saying, hey, I'll give you this, take it. Oh yeah, I'll take it. Okay, I'll go kidnap a couple people.
Of course.
I want to go into any more detail, but I think you get my point.
Okay, what say you about that? I'm like, okay, he's on to something there.
Yeah, he's absolutely far more articulate than I can be. But as a Nigerian, one of my biggest critiques of us, and I think you can say it's a vestige of colonialism, or it's a vestige of some counterproductive aspects of our culture. But we tend to be very elitist. There's a big split between the reality of the 99% of people and what we see, right? Like this idea that most of us are princes, or most of us are living like Davido or Burna Boy, without understanding that these artists, some of them that we see, don't represent the reality of what's going on in the country. And not only that, they also move with the superiority complex in their actual country. Like there's some places where the only road that's paved is the road from the airport to the rich guy's house. That's the only road that's paved. Everything else is just left to decay. And from the rich guy's perspective, a lot of times you feel a great deal of insecurity because everybody's coming after you, right? People want to kidnap you, people want to kill you, the whole nine. So it almost perpetuates that superiority complex. And that's one of the challenges that we have. And even, you know, his point with Afrobeat now kind of feeding capitalism, essentially. That's true as well. Like, you know, how we hear rap lyrics talking about aspiring to own a Rolls Royce or Mercedes or diamonds and this and that. That's the American dream, right? But the African dream never prioritized material possession. It never prioritized, you know, just looking better than everybody else. But even now, you see some of our Afrobeat artists, they're driving traffic to European car manufacturers. They're driving traffic to American jewelers or Swiss banks. And I don't think we fully have thought about the fact that everything that we're doing, we could redirect that into things that empower us. But again, these status symbols, these Mercedes, these, you know, Louis Vuitton and everything that we use that we use to separate ourselves really line the pockets of the enemy. And you know, yeah, and I think until we get to that point of understanding, we'll continue to be exploited the way that we are.
One of the things that I really appreciated, again, about what the professor was saying, was he said so much, but one of the things he said, again, is what you talked about, far as going back to the slave trading and also the indentured servitude.
Yeah.
He said it wouldn't be until the Oyo, I'm just using an example, the Oyo and the Dahomey would find themselves on the same plantation.
Right.
Shackled one behind the other, that they would they look at each other and say, we've been duped. And that is absolutely right. Whereas that before you talked about that they didn't see themselves as selling their brother, their sister into slavery. They were just selling another tribe that was trying to come for them. But again, when it came down to us, as far as the Europeans, no matter what tribe we came from, we were all Black, and it didn't matter what tribe we came from. And it's very much the same thing right now when he's talking about the what do you call it? The FBA or something like that, or
FBA, non-FBAs, yeah.
You know, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to change lanes because I told you, I don't know if I told you this. I've seen the movie 3 times.
Damn. Yeah, I've only seen it once. Wow.
I've seen it 3 times. I saw Black Panther like 4. Okay, so and each time I saw the movie, I saw something different in it. And I don't look to movies. I mean, there are some things, if it has some historical context, obviously I glean some things from it. But when I go to movies, I'm going for entertainment. Okay. But even in the entertainment, I may find something that resonates with me as a person, as a woman, and as a Black woman. Well, in this movie, I said that I felt each and every emotion possible. I felt that I believe that the movie addressed feminism, definitely. I believe that it addressed the sacrifices that come along with the pursuing one's career. I believe that it addressed, of course, the slavery and the slave trade, how they played a part in that. And also, I thought it addressed the differences in the generational differences when it comes to respect. So I'm going to share this because, again, I want to talk about that. And that's one of the reasons that I enjoyed the movie, because I saw myself in it. I saw myself in it on so many different levels. And again, because I wasn't looking for it to tell my story, if you will. But even though it didn't tell my story, there were still things about me I could see in it that helped me remind me to be glad about the woman that I am. And the woman that I am, to a degree, is a warrior. To a degree, is a warrior.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let me bring this up. Okay, so let me know if you can, if you.
How old are you?
I have 19 years.
You look like a child.
I work hard. Harder than anyone.
Many obstinate daughters are dumped at the palace. They usually fail.
All our lives, they tell us stories about the Agoji. That you have magic. You look like a regular old woman to me.
Fighting is not magic. It is skill. We will see if you have any.
Okay, so that's hold that thought. There's another one I want you to want to get a hold of, and then I want to get your thoughts on both of those because I identified with both of these particular ones, and I'm like, the hell. So this one right here.
You like the guns? You enjoy practicing with the men in the infantry? I see you flirting.
This is not allowed?
You know it is not.
Why not? The men who are soldiers have wives and children, but the Agoji cannot. How is that fair?
Were you this arrogant with your family? No wonder they gave you away.
It is you who is arrogant.
I am a general. I have earned it.
That's
you
right.
have earned nothing. I should put you out. I have watched soldiers die because they did not have discipline. Their easy life did not prepare them for.
I did not have an easy life.
As an Ogoja.
I did not have an easy life. I want to be with the others. I want to fight for my king.
Your tears mean nothing. To be a warrior, you must kill your tears. Go. Go.
Okay. Your thoughts on those two clips. I just want to get your perspective and then I'll tell you mine.
I think what the second clip attempted to kind of demonstrate is the opportunity cost for being, I'm gonna just put it like this, for being a man, right? Because her dispute was that why do the men get to have wives and children and the women can't? Well, that's because men don't have to bear children for 9 months. The men don't. There's certain advantages to the disconnected part that we play in reproduction, and unfortunately, part of the reason why she gave her up when she was a baby is because having a baby would have slowed her down from being a warrior. But today, the message that we're being fed, especially a lot of our women, is that you can do both, and you can fluidly and effortlessly switch between the two. And unfortunately, there are not that many examples of people who do it well. So I wish we spent more time kind of focusing on the outcomes that we wanted instead of trying to do both. That's my takeaway.
Okay, I'll receive that. And there's a part in here, but I couldn't find the clip. And I'm sure you will remember, again, spoiler alert, that Izogi is talking to Nawi and basically she's braiding her hair and talking about the guy that she got, the Malik guy. And then she says, Izogi said, I'm going to be Magano one day. So I'm assuming that means general. And she says, you cannot have both. The reason, I've said this before, the reason why those parts resonated with me, and there was a time that I didn't want to believe that I believed that I could have it all, and I believed that I could have it all at the same time.
Right.
And when it comes to this position, when it comes to the idea of, well, how, the men get to do this and how come, and that's not fair. Again, I was a military officer, and I've shared this on my other clip, that when I went to my officer basic course, there was about 30 of us in total, 10 women, the rest men. But of the 10 women, I was the only one that had a child.
Mm-hmm. So you're an exception, not the rule.
I was the only female, the only female that had a child.
Mm-hmm.
All the other men, there were several of my classmates that were men that were married and had children. But it goes to the part that you said that they could separate that because they had wives at home taking care of their children. Whereas at my female counterparts, they some of them were married but hadn't had children yet. And some of them were not married, but I was the only female in my class that had a child. But again, I had to kill my tears when I missed my daughter. I could not, no one felt sorry for me. And I'm thinking I'm pursuing to have it all, if you will, to be this career officer, to be this warrior woman, but I was sacrificing my time with my daughter. And in as much as I pursued that career out of necessity, it was, but there was a cost to bear. And I said before that there was a time that I thought that I was going to be a general one day, and absolutely said I was. I'm going to be a general one day. But to have pursued that course of action, what I would have lost with my child, but also the opportunities to be married. I mean, obviously, I lost the opportunity to be married because I didn't get married until way after I left the military and after my child was grown. So I think, and that's why I said, I think the movie addresses a lot of things, even to include feminism.
Right.
There is a price to pay. There's a price to pay. And it's not fair.
It's not. It's not. And even before you get to the point of potentially having kids, right? The reality is similar to how most women would be turned off by a man who doesn't have bass in his voice. Most men would be turned off by a woman who does, right? Because for what we're looking for from one another is literally opposite. So something, and I've been saying this on my show a lot, but something that would make you a very attractive man tends to not make you a very attractive woman. Like, I'll talk to women, and one of the common rebuttals that I'll get is, I don't know any of these women that you guys complain about. All my friends are fantastic women. I'm like, are your friends single? They're like, yeah, they're single. Well, I would venture to say all your friends are fantastic men. That friend that's a lawyer, that friend that's a doctor, that friend who, takes trips all the time. If she was a dude, she would be a great catch. But when you're looking at what men value from women, it's different. And again, to your point, the opportunity cost of, becoming that warrior means killing your tears. Men are not looking for men. Heterosexual men are not looking for men. They don't appreciate masculinity from women. They're looking for a balance, right? So that male general is more than likely not looking for a female general in a wife, in a partner. He's looking for somebody who is the opposite, has an appreciation of what he is, but isn't another like combatant that he has to face at the house. But, I don't think we talk enough about like the cost of becoming or getting what you want out of life.
And, I will submit in these spaces, and I have to be honest, I had kind of succumbed to it myself. There's almost a certain amount of shame that is projected if you have accomplished anything.
Okay.
And I had to say no. Now, and I'm going to go to another spoiler alert. And I know that there's a part of the movie that there was a question, people talk about is more emasculating of men. And there's a part of the movie, again, spoiler alert, that the male general goes to Viola Davis's character and said, "Have you been meeting with the king behind my back?" And then she says, "If the king respects me, it's because I've earned it."
Mm.
Well, in as much as some men may have taken exception with that, I identify with that.
Mm.
And I identify with it because I have been an advisor to leadership. And if I allow myself in these spaces, it's almost like I should be ashamed of that.
Mm.
That my male leadership respected me. Your thoughts?
I think part of what's frustrating about the manosphere sometimes is I don't know if we articulate things the best way, right? So, one of the complaints that I get is that, it seems like men in the manosphere, men in general, they don't want educated women, they don't want successful women or accomplished women. And, as a man, I can better digest what it is that men are trying to say. And at the core, it's not that we have an issue with women who are educated or accomplished or credentialed. Men have an issue with women who lead with that.
I would agree.
Men have an issue with women who lead with their traditionally masculine qualifications. Because again, like I said, there are certain things that men are looking for from women. There's certain things women are looking for from men, and some of those things are opposite. So you being able to cook for most men would be more impressive than your doctorate degree.
I would agree.
Women have been, in my opinion, tricked to believe that men should be impressed by things that they would find impressive, which I think speaks more to the complete dismissal of what men want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's kind of the frustration men are speaking from. It's like, yo, I've had to understand you. You haven't had to understand me as well. And you're just giving me whatever. And I'm supposed to like enjoy it. Right. Like I'm supposed to be impressed because you said it should be impressive to me. When men are like, yeah, your education is nice. But if that's all you have to offer from the standpoint of things that I value, it's not really high up on the list. At least it's not as high as these things. And you have completely dismissed these things. So it seems like you don't actually want me. You actually don't care about what I want. So no, I don't care about your masters. And that comes off to women like, oh, you should be ashamed of your accomplishments. But really what men are saying is stop leading with that.
I don't disagree with that. And I don't disagree with that. And I'm not sure if you know, everybody who follows me, y'all know that I met my husband online 4 years ago. And I reached out to him, and it's a good thing I did reach out to him because in as much as he had seen my profile that I list all the things that I had done and pictures of me in my uniform, doing, large in charge, he didn't reach out to me. So I asked him why, even though he saved my, profile as one of his favorites, I asked him, why didn't he reach out to me? And he said that he didn't think I would be interested with all the stuff that I had done leading with my stuff, that he didn't think that I'd be interested in a truck driver.
Right. And that, the thing is, that's actually scientifically consistent. I think it was a Stanford study, and they found for every 7 IQ points or 1 standard deviation, a woman's IQ is higher than the average man, she shrinks her pool. Right. And it kind of goes back to the whole hypergamy thing. In order for most women to accept the authority of a man, she must on some level think he is better. She must on some. And this is why we see most women want a man that's taller. Most women want a man who's larger in size. Most women want a man who makes more money. Most women want a man who has more notoriety, clout, whatever the case may be, because biologically we've developed to want to look up literally and figuratively to our men. So men who based on accomplishments or whatever the case may be, know that you're unable to look up to them. They're not going to go that route, right? I'm not going to put my resume in to work at Google if I know I don't have any coding certificates or whatever the case may be. I'm gonna just be the manager at where I'm at, and be appreciated and be able to lead that, as opposed to constantly being trivialized, or constantly being checked, or constantly being talked down to in a place that I don't belong. So a lot of men don't even go that route. And then the other thing too is, I think our reflex is to assume that because this woman is so accomplished, because she's so credentialed, she is not going to be nurturing. Because it's like you said, that's one of killing your tears means that. Right. And the idea is that, I can be one person outside and another person inside. And that, to a certain extent, we're all like that. But for the most part, human beings don't know how to flip that switch as much. Once they go in this mode, that's kind of what it is. And, the man at home is going to have to suffer that. And most men say, nah, I don't even want to do that. I'd rather get this waitress who thinks I'm the best thing since sliced bread.
And there was a time that I was there. I mean, and I get that. But, I didn't know that I was doing anything wrong, though.
Right.
Because again, what I thought was attractive in my mind, they would think that too. But it wasn't. And so I'm glad that I learned, because my husband's my hero.
Oh.
And ladies, he sent me, let me see. He sent me a text today showing what he's eating his lunch on the road. And it was a lunch that I prepared for him.
Wow.
That home cooking, you heard? So, okay, so this is the last clip I want to show you. Again,
okay.
This was very telling, because I absolutely, can you guess which was my favorite character in the movie?
It wasn't Viola Davis?
Mm-mm.
It wasn't. Was it Gezzo?
Mm-mm.
The King? I don't know.
Izogi.
Izogi. Which one is that?
The Beast.
Oh, the one who was doing the spear thing with the dude, with the other guy?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Lashana Lynch. Okay, so let's look at this.
Yeah. Okay.
This is really telling, and I really like this interview. So check this out.
You tougher as a person. Ooh.
Oh, let me go back.
As a person. I'm not special. Do you feel that Izogi made you tougher as a person? Ooh. I actually, on the contrary, think that she made me softer. In her being so tough, and me learning what it means to be the strong Black woman, and me not wanting to use that phrase anymore for myself or for the people I care about. She made me pay attention to the nuances of my experience, my vulnerability, my fears, all of the things that come with me that make me proud of being me. And with her, she's so tough on the outside. No one really gets to see her sensitive side. But I question, what does she do at night? What does she dream about? What are her fears? What does she see when she looks at these young people she's about to train?
Are we training to cook? You are cutting a body, not a ass.
What is she saying to her younger self? So yeah, I think she ironed me out a little bit, which is quite nice.
I'm also interested in the idea of colorism. We've talked.
That really got to me, because again, she said it had the opposite effect. Your thoughts?
Well, that was my least favorite scene, because again, I think it reinforces this notion that not only are Black women mentally more capable than Black men, they're also physically more capable. They have a higher tolerance. They're more resilient, and the whole nine, which I think only serves.
We do push babies.
Sure. But I think from a political lens, it serves to further emasculate Black men and boys. And I think that's perfect for Hollywood. I think that's perfect for the white power structure. I appreciate the fact that she has seen issue in the strong Black woman trope, right? I don't think we talk enough about how that trope, that expectation is literally killing y'all, right? That trope going all the way back from the father of gynecology, who was experimenting on Black women because he felt like they didn't feel pain to the same extent as their white counterparts, to now we're embracing that mythology, right? I think it only serves to further destroy us as a people, further emasculate the men, further destroy the women. And I'm glad that, you know, even this whole soft girl era, as much as I might have my reservations about it, I would rather you guys embrace that, because I think that is a strength that our women would be better suited adopting, and you know, and getting behind the men as we try to gain our masculinity back. But yeah, no, I appreciate that. But I think in the meantime, like, I think she was slated to play 007. Right. So I think she might continue to play roles that inadvertently push that narrative. But if she recognizes it in her personal life, I think we're making a step in the right direction.
Well, I think that's important because, again, the reason why I say that, again, from a professional perspective, as an officer and also as a senior person in the federal government before I retired, well, yeah, I had to be, you know, stone-faced. I had to be rigid. I had to look like I would get in your ass. And a lot of times I would. But to that point, my fears, my worries, all those things. So it's kind of like I identify with that because you are this hard person. But what are you afraid of? You know, I mean, what I think about it, and everything that I'm able to share with my husband now.
Right.
That I didn't think about at that time, because you do have to put on this, you know, as I used to say, get into character.
Right.
I used to literally say that, get into character, to be able to do what I needed to do as an officer or as a federal employee. But it was breaking me.
Right. Well, and I hope it's for the women who are having to do that. I hope it gives them an appreciation of what masculinity is, because I think very often we trivialize masculinity, because manhood is about being disposable, right? Whether it being disposable at war, in industry, whatever the case may be, and we don't really think twice about it. I'm hoping that now that women are having to assume some of those roles and some of that disposition, that weight gives you an appreciation of what being a man really is.
Oh, absolutely. I think I was talking to Lucky Marie earlier, shout out to Lucky Marie, about the idea when men go out into the world and have to fight you know, out there.
Right.
And I said, it's not necessarily a physical fight. You know, my husband was talking about, you know, the things that he has to deal with on the road, but when he talks to me, it just calms him, even though I may not know what he's dealing with. Well, the things he has to deal with is that he's driving this semi truck. So he has to deal with people driving reckless around him, all the different things that go along with that, having the patience to navigate this, basically this tank, if you will. And that is part of the fight, because that could be a stressful job to have to deal with that, not to mention, you know, management or whatever, and then come home and deal with frustration.
Right.
So I understand that now better than I would have earlier, because even though it's not what we think fighting is, it is fighting. It is wrestling with the powers that be, whether it be environmental, whether it be whatever it is.
Right.
Having to have the mettle to do what is required. One last thing, emasculation. Because I don't want to take we've been going on a little over an hour, about an hour and a half. There was one part that someone said that when the guy Malik was washing Nawi's hands with the water, you remember that part? That was emasculating.
Malik is a light-skinned dude?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. It said that was emasculating. I'll say this, like, and it's kind of what I said earlier. I think part of, so I'm a filmmaker.
Okay.
And because of that, I don't view movies the same way most people do, right? I view it primarily for like the cinematography, the lighting choices, the angles, things like that. But secondarily, I view it as a propaganda tool, as a very powerful propaganda tool. Movies, music literally set the zeitgeist. It sets kind of the pace for what does reality look like, sound like, feel like in this time period. So like we talk about D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, and it set up a certain paradigm for how we should think about Black men. And even though that movie was decades ago, that paradigm that it set is still resonating till today. So similarly, when I see movies that flip the gender role on its head, and not necessarily that particular scene, because I don't think that scene is that deep, but in certain aspects, like women are the warriors and men are the nurturers and things like that, I think to myself, okay, what paradigm is it trying to set? Is this paradigm sustainable? And who benefits and who suffers from this paradigm? And what I've been saying recently is from a Black perspective, from an Afrocentric perspective, from a Pan-African perspective, I've been saying that Black male ego fuels revolution. Black female ego fuels capitalism. And that's the unfortunate reality. If when Black men start smelling themselves, shit changes. Things happen. People die. When Black women start smelling themselves, and this historically, they continue to smell themselves. It's female empowerment. It's beautiful at any size. It's I deserve, hot girl summer. It's that stuff. So there is a direct incentive, and I think correlation, to keep Black men humble, to keep Black men demure, to keep Black men docile, because the power structure understands that. Listen, like, even talking about the movie, men don't spend money across the board. Men are very particular with their money. Men are very particular with their financial decisions. Even as a YouTuber, I get comments sometimes with men. They'll say at the 2-minute and 45-second mark, you earned a subscriber. You see what I'm saying? So it's not a frivolous, oh, I want to, it's not even necessarily I want to hear more of you. It's like, you earned it. And that's how men look at it. So as a marketing firm, as a capitalistic company, men being my consumer base doesn't really serve my bottom line the way women being my consumer base serves my bottom line. You open any woman's kitchen cabinet, she's got 57 beauty products. You open her closet and she's got 151 shoes, right? So it
I'm
makes
downsized.
Sense. It makes sense. It makes sense to serve women and make women feel themselves. It doesn't make sense to serve men, just from a business standpoint. So I think as Black people, we need to be careful about some of this propaganda that we are seeing in movies and music, and what it's going to mean for, our children. Like right now, a lot of our women are saying that Black men aren't protecting them. They don't feel protected by us, right? And unfortunately, the reality is, I can't protect somebody I can't tell what to do. Even thinking about it from like the perspective of the military, if your general can't command you, he can't protect you. If he can't tell you to march that way, he can't help you, right? And men are tasked with provide and protect. Provide meaning that I'm in charge of your sustenance. Protect means that I will protect you against any enemy, foreign and domestic, including yourself. But again, if you have a complex that tells you that you are over me, that you are to be, I'm to be subservient to you, I can't really protect. And then you're having boys grow up in environments where they're seeing the women in their lives having to be men. And then they project those expectations on women later on in life. And it's just a vicious cycle. So for me personally, I want to see more movies of Black women being taken care of. I don't want to see y'all doing these fear competitions with men.
Okay, so hold that thought. And that is one of the reasons I took exception with the idea of that part of the movie when someone said that it was emasculating, because what that showed me in that moment, showing this woman who had a hard life, who was given away to the king to be part of his guard. That the professor stated that the true story is that the least of them, if you will, were given to the king to be basically his wives too. But even though they weren't, because they were the least attractive, the least all this. So you had this woman who had to be hard for whatever reason, for survival or whatever, and this man showing her tenderness. So I took exception. I'm like, well, why does him washing her hands, that she has the blood of her mentor on her? Why is that emasculating? Would it be better for him to say, "Here, bitch, just go clean yourself up"?
No.
That's tenderness, because again, many women don't know what that looks like. And again, shout out to Courtney Michelle with the thing she just did with Scheherazade Ali, stated that many women now are the grandchildren of women from the crack era, which is very true, because some of those same young people, my dad works in placement with young boys, okay? Those boys are the offspring, are the grandchildren of the offspring from the crack era. So if you take that, these women who are offspring, whether it be children or grandchildren from women from the crack era, they had to fend for themselves.
Right.
And it's not that I'm saying it. Miss Scheherazade Ali said, and y'all respect her. So it happened. And so you have women who did not know what tenderness looks like. I'm one of them.
Right.
It's unfamiliar to us in many instances. And because it's unfamiliar, what do we choose to do? We choose to leave the man that's good, may be good for us, and be with our sisters, like now we did in the movie.
That's a good point.
Because it's unfamiliar to us. The fact that he's mulatto, notwithstanding, okay, that's another story for another day. But the fact of the matter is, this man is showing her tenderness, and she says, "My heart has many scars." That is true. So if that is, and he said, "I want to take care of you. I want to keep you safe." My question is, why is that emasculating?
I agree with you. I don't think that is emasculating. I think the only issue I can see with it is there seems to be an abundance of empathy for women, for Black women, and as you put it, being the descendants of the crack epidemic, there seems to not be as much for Black men, right? So even though I'm preaching to Black men that there should be some grace that you show to our women, right? There should be some grace of understanding that she was raised to be a warrior, even though that's not her ministry. What Black men are saying in response is that even when I showed her grace, no grace was showed to me.
I will agree.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like I'm supposed to show you grace in the fact that you have to operate in your masculine, and you show me no grace of being systemically emasculated. I have to cater to the fact that white supremacy made you feel ugly and less than as a woman, and you don't feel any responsibility to. You could even put it as cater to my ego, right? Like your reflex is to remind me how I'm not man enough, whereas I'm expected to cater to the fact that you don't feel like you're woman enough. And I think literally what men are saying is that there should be grace on both sides. There should be consideration on both sides. And then as I'm helping you wipe yourself clean, wipe me too. I've been through some stuff too. You know what I'm saying? I've the effects of what you have of what our ancestors went through, it affected me as well. Right now, I think part of that is because women tend to be more vocal about their pain. Women, movies are made about women's pain. Books are written, songs are written about women's pain. And I think from that, the assumption is men don't have any pain. So the empathy that's shown to women, men don't really need it as much, when the opposite is the case. So for me, that's why I'm excited about the growth that we're seeing in the Black manosphere, because I think women would be surprised of what men have locked up, and especially Black men have locked up inside of them.
Well, I will agree, because I'm 55, my husband is 57, and I will say that men, for the most part, and God rest rest in peace, Kevin Samuels, that men were told not to voice their their hurts. Yeah. I mean, I have even my husband, I remember there was a time his mom has been gone for a while now, way before we met, and there's, I think, around her birthday or something like that, we were hanging out, and he did this because he did not want me to see him cry. But he was missing his mom. His mom's been gone over 20 years. But again, he's from a generation that even when you hurt for the loss of your mom, you don't cry.
Right.
So men, and that is what they taught their sons too, for the most part.
Right. And it's for a reason. And that's the thing. Sometimes I think sometimes we trivialize that. And that's kind of what I've been trying to explain to women. When we look at the essence of what masculinity is tasked to do, it's tasked to provide and it's tasked to protect. So literally, for instance, if you've seen Beyonce and her bodyguard, I know they're popular. He doesn't seem to be happy. His head is constantly on a swivel because his job is literally to anticipate the worst constantly. In order to protect anything worth a damn, you have to think the worst possible thing could potentially happen at any turn. That is our job as men all the time. And whether that's anticipating a financial crash, whether that's anticipating a burglar breaking into your home, we have to be warrior 24/7. And this is why we appreciate a woman who gives us the ability to take off our armor, because our armor is our life. Right now, some men are better at it than others, but I think what needs to happen more, instead of women trivializing what it means to be a man and kind of creating this narrative that you should be more like us, I think an appreciation of what it is that men have to do. The reason why it's not advantageous for a man to show weakness. Just like, you could probably think about it from a military standpoint or even from a sports standpoint. Immediately you start showing you're tired, the other team is won. As soon as you start showing you're scared, the other team is won. So as a man, even if we are tired, even if we are scared, even if we do feel sad, our reflex is to do the opposite, but it's for your own good. And then don't let me get started on the fact that because of all these things, our women in general, not just Black women, but in general, do not know how to deal with male vulnerability.
My daughter, who's 28, said the exact same thing.
So even what you're asking us for, you don't even know how to process it. And then, we hear the horror stories of women who have weaponized that vulnerability at a later date. So not only am I doing a thing for your benefit, and I've kind of subscribed myself to it of, killing my tears. Now, even when I've let you in a little bit and you take advantage of it, man, and we see the horror stories. So I think if we have more of an appreciation for what it is to be a man, as opposed to this, we trivialize it. And we kind of operate under this assumption that we would be better men as women. If I could do your job better than you. And I think that's why men get triggered by some of these scenes, because I think it's deeper than that. And when we think about it in our own lives, we're like, damn, not only is my role not appreciated, and every internal battle that I have to face is not appreciated. Now the message is that you could do this better than me with heels on. And that's a terrible message.
Okay. Well, it's funny because, again, going back to killing the tears, again, I'm listening to you talk, and yes, so in that vein, I was a male because when I had my uniform on, and even when I took it off, to the extent of going into the federal government and leadership, again, I had to put on that that exterior that men have.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I can't cry. There's no crying in baseball. Shout out to Tom Hanks. So there's no crying in baseball. But again, so I'm going toe to toe. Okay, I get it. I mean,
one of the things that came out a while back, they said, the rates of white men in particular deleting themselves has been rising throughout the decades.
Mhm.
And, even, I read another article that said with men in particular, there's a correlation between early retirement and early death. Masculinity for so long has been built on utility, has been built on literally being useful.
Mhm.
And this is one of the first times in history where it's not as clear cut as, okay, you're going to be a warrior, you're going to be a farmer, you're going to go in the coal mine. Like men are being just out, kind of being left to dry. And we're trying to figure out like what that means and how to work that out. But again, we were built for a certain thing. We were built to be warriors. We were built to be workers. We were built to build. And those things seem to no longer be useful. And I think, there should be an appreciation for what that means to men. Like literally taking away our reason literally leads to us not wanting to be here. And I think that empathy would really better inform some of these conversations about men.
Okay, to that point, hear me. I'm gonna do this right now, real quick.
Sure.
Hear me and hear me well. What are you saying is true? My grandfather, God rest his soul, he worked until his 80s, not because he had to, because he wanted to. The moment that he could no longer work, his health deteriorated.
Yes, facts.
My husband has said, I said, baby, when you gonna retire? I'm not.
I can't.
I'm not gonna retire. My military men, I did the transition program for the Army. Many of them, the first 5 years after retirement, struggled immensely. And some did terminate themselves. Again, the sense of purpose, the sense of direction is absolutely true. Yeah. Absolutely true. Yeah. Okay, last thing. What are your thoughts about the idea, because everyone is up in arms, myself included.
Okay.
About it initially, about the title woman king.
Yeah. I've actually, but way before the movie happened, I saw, a few women on Instagram with the handle something King Maria or King Brittany, right? Like, and I think it's like a subconscious embrace of masculinity that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was intentional or what they were doing with the name or with the movie, but I think the general blurring of the lines between genders, the general pushing women to embrace their masculine, while also pushing effeminate images of men, especially effeminate images of Black men. I don't think it's any mistake, right? I don't think it's any coincidence.
Okay, but shout out to the professor. He talked about, because Courtney asked the question about when we think about king in a sense of what we know it to be, in the times of the movie setting, king was not indicative of a gender. It was a position. It was a ruler. In the way. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, with that, I don't know enough to speak intelligently on that. My reflex is to say no, but I don't know enough to say yes or no.
Yeah, the professor talks about it. He talks about, I don't want to, because we've been going a while. But he talks about that there were, and even my mom, again, shout out to my mom, said the same in her studies, that in the times it was not indicative of a gender, it was indicative of the position. The word ruler and king are basically interchangeable because it was not gender specific. So like I said, initially I was kind of outraged too, because again, in my mind, I'm thinking of what I know a king to be, which is a man, versus a queen is a woman. But in those times, based on what the professor was saying, based on what my mom said, her studies, it was not indicative of a position. So I look at it like, when you talk about a general can be a woman or a man.
Sure.
So captain, woman or man, it is not gender specific. It is the position. So I would submit, going back to what we were talking about, it behooves us, it's in our best interest before we and I'm putting myself in there too, to research something before I become outraged about it.
Sure. But we should also understand kind of the outrage, especially from Black men, right? Like we're you know what I'm saying? Like while we've been simultaneously beat over the head with this idea that Black men are the boogeyman and they're the scum of the earth, we're also being beat over the head with this idea that our women are superior to us in every way imaginable. So I think more than just the nuances of what the movie does well or what it doesn't do well, I think there should be some empathy to why men had such a visceral reaction to another. It's another one that's going to tell us that they're better. It's another one that's going to tell us not only are they better intellectually, but they can beat me up too. And what's interesting, I remember I spoke at a HBCU, a female HBCU, some months ago, and listening to how the female students spoke to their male professor. As an African, as a man, it was mind-blowing. They were talking to him, who is not only is he old enough to be all their fathers, he's also a PhD in the discipline that they're going to school for. He's also, just physically speaking, probably 6'3", 250 pounds, muscular man. They're talking to him like he was like their little brother or something. And again, that disposition is reinforced by some of this propaganda that we see. And we see the music doing such a fantastic job, and we also see movies doing that job as well. So again, like, even though some of men's anger might be misdirected, it comes from a place. And
I'm not saying I don't understand, because like I said, initially I was just as outraged.
Right.
But having gone to see the movie and also having that reinforced by the professor and also my mom, who's done African studies, lets me know, okay, my outrage was misplaced. I understand it.
Yeah.
But it was misplaced. And I think that we should before we continue to be just outraged, maybe we should, because again, to use her words, context does matter.
Absolutely.
Context does matter. And again, y'all, in these spaces, y'all use clickbait all day long to get people to watch. So don't play.
Yeah, that's a fact.
All day long.
Yeah.
And so one could, chalk that up to clickbait. It got us talking.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not going to keep you anymore. I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm mad at Rilla. He gonna get one. Yeah,
that's a good man.
Rilla. Yeah. He's a hard-working man. So, do you have any last words before I let you go?
I think these conversations are so vital. I appreciate your willingness to listen. I appreciate your willingness to think outside yourself. I think we need more of you. And from my perspective, it's about Black people being able to rejoin each other in harmonious union, whatever that looks like, from a friendship standpoint, romantic standpoint, but it all starts with effective and empathy-filled communication. So I think that's what we did tonight, and I appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate those of your your followers or your subscribers that came to visit. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I've earned a couple.
Yeah, y'all click that subscribe button if you're here.
Hopefully I've
Click the
earned
like
a
button as
couple.
well. Absolutely.
You know, I like to. I'm your aunt TJ. Try to keep.
Put the timestamp in there too, so you tell her at 2:45 you earned.
Yeah.
That's right.
If I earned your subscription or you subscribe,
That's right.
put the timestamp. Well, thank you, Alan. I'm gonna drop you down, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care of yourself. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thank you all so much for coming, stopping by, and I really enjoyed the conversation with him, and also the comments in the comment section and I thank you for the engagement. Yeah, I think, like I said, I watched the movie 3 times, and I gleaned something new each time, and I do understand the concerns of our men, and I will not discount them. I will just say I saw myself in that movie, in the good parts as well as the bad parts. The bad parts, I'm so happy I was able to course correct. The good parts, it was reassuring me that I am proud of the things that I have done. I'm proud of the things that I've done that are beneficial to my family, to include, but first and foremost, my husband, because his warrior wife gets things done, but he is the king in this castle. Okay. And I showed my appreciation by, among other things, having him home cooked meals to take out on the road with him, being his safe place for him to be vulnerable. And that's something we should strive for, ladies. It should not necessarily be a soft girl era, but a soft girl lifestyle. And something hopefully now that we can get back to, because we did lose a lot of that over the years. Many of us were forced to take on more masculine positions, whether we took them on out of necessity, or desire. If it has not gotten us what we wanted, we need to course correct. And we need to spread the word to our other sisters, so they don't have to go down the same roads that we do. And they can enjoy the fruit that is the feminine labor, if you will. Okay, so I think I'm feeling it. Okay, don't talk about me. Don't talk about me. I'm a lightweight. I've been told that warm milk can get me tipsy. So don't talk about me. So thank you for stopping by. Until next time, ciao for now.